My boss said yes to a date. Then I found out why she really came, and it wasn't for romance the way I'd imagined, but for something that could ruin her career and break the quiet bond we'd been building in the office for months. My name is Colby, and I'd spent the last 3 years trying to rebuild my life after losing my wife, Grace, keeping my head down, doing my job, and avoiding anything that felt like hope. But Juliana Whitmore, my boss, didn't allow distance. She ran our company like a fortress, sharp, respected, untouchable. Yet lately, she'd been watching me with those same guarded eyes that looked like they'd survived too much. She was brilliant, feared in board meetings, and always in control. But the day I finally asked her out, her yes didn't sound like happiness. It sounded like relief. Because when my boss said yes to a date, she didn't choose a cozy restaurant or a simple evening. She chose a private place, a timed arrival, a specific table. She showed up dressed like she was going to war, but her hands trembled when she reached for her glass, like she wasn't here to fall in love, but to face someone. And then I saw it, the real reason my boss came, a black SUV outside. A man stepping out with the kind of smile that pretends to be polite while it calculates damage, and behind Juliana's calm expression, something cracked. The same way broken people crack right before they bolt. So why did my boss really come to that date? What was she trying to hide or prove or escape? And why did she choose me to sit beside her when it mattered most? If this date was never about dating at all. Earlier that day, the Whitmore Group executive floor smelled like lemon polish and expensive coffee, and the air felt too clean for real feelings. People walked quietly, like sound itself needed permission. Ruth stopped me near the elevator. Ruth was 68, sharp-eyed and fearless, the kind of woman who could silence a room with one look. She had seen every secret this company ever tried to bury. "You're walking like a man headed into trouble," she said, tapping her fingernail on my folder. "I'm just working," I answered. Ruth gave a short laugh. "Work doesn't make your jaw tighten like that, tell me." I hesitated, but it was like holding my breath too long. "I asked my boss on a date," I admitted. Ruth's eyes widened. "And she said yes?" "She did." Ruth leaned closer. "How did she say yes?" I thought of Juliana in her office, the glass walls, the city far below, her face calm, but her fingers gripping the desk so hard her knuckles went pale. "She sounded relieved," I said. Ruth's smile disappeared. "Then listen to me. That date is not just a date." Before I could ask what she meant, Juliana's door opened. She looked at me like she had something heavy on her back and no place to set it down. Colby. My office. Inside, everything about Juliana's office was perfect. But perfection is sometimes just fear wearing makeup. "I agreed to the date," she said, not sitting down. My heart did something stupid, like it forgot what pain was. "Okay," I said softly. "But there are rules," she added quickly. "Rules, not flowers, not laughter. Rules. 7:15, you arrive alone, table 12. If anyone asks, we're discussing company business," she said, like she'd memorized it to stay alive. "And Colby." She paused, her voice dropped. "Whatever happens, don't react." My stomach tightened. "Juliana, why are you doing this?" She held my gaze, and the mask slipped just a little. "I need a witness," she whispered. "A witness to what?" Her lips parted, but her phone buzzed, and her whole face changed in 1 second. She looked at the screen, and I saw something I'd never seen on her before. Fear, not stress, fear. She put the phone face down like it was poison. "Please," she said again. "Just be there." That "please" dragged me back to a memory I tried not to touch. Grace holding my hand in a hospital hallway, whispering, "Promise me you'll still show up in life, even if it scares you." I nodded. "I'll be there." On my way out, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A photo of Juliana walking into the building that morning. Another man close behind her. Black SUV outside. Then a message. Stay out of what doesn't belong to you. I felt cold all over. That night, the restaurant was warm, dark, and quiet, with soft music that couldn't cover the tension in my chest. Table 12 was in the back corner, the kind of table you pick when you want control. But I didn't feel in control at all. My phone buzzed again. Last chance, leave. I didn't move, because my boss said yes to a date. And whatever she really came for, she didn't come alone. The black SUV rolled up outside like it owned the street. The man stepped out. Tall, polished, suit crisp, smile smooth, danger dressed like success. Then Juliana walked in. She looked powerful, but her eyes were scanning the room like someone searching for exits. She came to my table and sat down fast. Her perfume was clean and sharp, like she'd tried to cover fear with elegance. Whatever happens, she whispered without looking at me. Don't stand up. My throat tightened. Juliana, listen, she said, her voice steady but thin. He wants you to see this. He, I whispered. She finally looked at me, and her eyes begged without using words. Before I could ask more, a shadow fell across our table. The man stood there smiling. Juliana, he said smoothly, you look refreshed. Her jaw locked. Marcus, she said, like the name tasted bitter. Marcus's eyes slid to me. And you must be the reason my ex-wife suddenly believes she can play brave. Ex-wife. My chest tightened. I'm Colby. Marcus chuckled like I was a joke he didn't mind stepping on. The employee turned date. Juliana's fingers trembled near her glass, but she kept her chin high. Marcus pulled out the chair beside our table and sat down without asking. He leaned in slightly, his smile still perfect, but his eyes were cold. You picked a good witness, he murmured to Juliana, because tonight I'm going to give you a choice. Juliana didn't blink. Say it. Marcus's smile widened. You'll sign what I brought, he said softly, or tomorrow morning the board gets the footage, and your boss title becomes a headline. Juliana's breathing changed, small, fast. I looked at her. What footage? She slid something into my hand under the table. Small. Cold. A recorder. Her voice barely moved when she whispered, He's been threatening me for months, but tonight, he's going to confess. I need you to hear it. My pulse thundered. Marcus tapped the table once, like a countdown. And Colby, he added, finally turning his full attention to me, if you try to be a hero, you'll learn what happens to men who get involved in things that don't belong to them. Juliana's eyes met mine. Not boss to employee, not date to date. Just one scared human looking at another and asking without words. Will you stay? Marcus's smile stayed polished, but his eyes didn't. He watched Juliana like she was a door he'd kicked open before, and he expected it to swing again. You picked a good witness, he murmured, because tonight I'm going to give you a choice. Juliana didn't blink. Say it. Marcus leaned back in his chair like the whole restaurant belonged to him. Around us, cutlery clinked, low laughter floated, a waiter passed carrying sizzling plates. But our corner felt silent, sealed off, like the air had thickened into glass. You'll sign what I brought, he said, sliding a thin manila envelope onto the table with one finger. Or tomorrow morning the board gets the footage, and your boss title becomes a headline. Juliana's hand tightened around her water glass. Her knuckles went pale. I felt her slide something cold into my palm under the table. A tiny recorder. My throat tightened, but I kept my face calm. I didn't look at it. I didn't fidget. I just wrapped my fingers around it like it was a promise. What footage? I asked. even though I could feel Juliana silently begging me not to say too much. Marcus's eyes flicked to me, amused. "Oh, he talks," he said to Juliana, like I wasn't there. "I like him. Brave, innocent, dangerous combination." Juliana kept her voice steady, but I could hear a crack under it. "If you have something, show it to my lawyers." Marcus gave a soft laugh, the kind you hear right before someone breaks something you love. "You still don't get it. This isn't legal. This is personal." He tapped the envelope once. "Sign the resignation letter. Step down quietly. Approve the acquisition package, and stop blocking my contracts." Juliana's eyes narrowed. "Your contracts destroy small farmers." Marcus shrugged. "Small farmers don't pay like corporations do." That sentence hit me hard, because I knew what Whitmore Group represented on paper: agriculture, land, livelihoods. But I also knew what people like Marcus did behind paper. They turned land into numbers and families into problems. Juliana's lips pressed together. "My grandfather built this company to protect them." Marcus leaned in, voice lowering. "Your grandfather is dead." Juliana's breath caught so slightly most people wouldn't notice. But I did. I noticed because I'd seen the same tiny flinch in Grace when pain tried to rise, and she shoved it down so no one would pity her. Juliana swallowed and forced her voice to stay calm. "What do you want, Marcus?" Marcus's smile widened, like he'd been waiting for that exact question. "I want control. I want you to stop acting like you're the Queen of Nebraska, and I want you to remember who made you." Juliana's eyes flashed. "I made myself." Marcus nodded slowly. "That's what you tell people. But the truth?" His gaze dropped to her hand, to the ring finger with no ring. "The truth is, you've always needed someone to stand behind you. First your grandfather, then me." Juliana's shoulders went rigid. I felt heat crawl up my neck, not because I wanted to fight, but because I hated the way he spoke to her like she was property. Marcus's eyes lifted to mine again. "And now you've picked him." He said him like he was tasting something bitter. I kept my voice even. "Why threaten her in public?" Marcus's lips curled. "Public?" He glanced around at the soft lighting and expensive faces. "This is private enough. People in this room don't hear problems. They hear money." Then he leaned forward and spoke softly, like he was offering advice. "Colby, right? Let me help you. Walk away. Because men who get involved with Juliana Whitmore end up regretting it." Juliana's fingers trembled against her glass. She hated that he was talking to me. She hated that he was making it sound like I was the problem. But she also needed him to keep talking. I could feel it. So I did what Ruth told me to do. I paid attention. Juliana took a slow breath and tilted her head, almost curious. "If you're so confident, why not do this the right way? Why blackmail?" Marcus's eyes glinted. "Because the right way takes time. And I'm tired of waiting." Juliana's voice stayed calm. "Waiting for what?" Marcus's smile sharpened. "For you to break." There was a tiny pause, and the world seemed to lean in. Juliana's face didn't move much, but her eyes did. They flicked toward the recorder hidden in my hand, like she was silently counting seconds. "Break how?" she asked. Marcus's voice dropped lower. "You've been blocking acquisitions. You've been refusing the board. You've been turning down the money I bring in." He shrugged. "So I give you pressure." "Pressure," Juliana echoed soft. Marcus's gaze didn't blink. "Investigators, articles, rumors. I make people question your judgment." My stomach turned cold. Juliana held his stare. "And the footage?" Marcus's smile returned. The footage." He pulled out his phone and tapped the screen without unlocking it all the way, like he enjoyed holding power in his pocket. "It's you," he said, "in your office, after hours, and talking about personal things." Juliana's face didn't change, but her throat moved like she swallowed glass. "You edited it," she said. Marcus lifted one shoulder. "I don't have to edit much when people already want to believe the worst." I felt something heavy settle in my chest. So, this was the trap. Not just to ruin her reputation, to make it look like she was corrupt, unstable, unfit to lead. So the board would replace her, and Marcus would step into the gap he created. Juliana's voice was steady, but it was thin as paper. "You told me you'd leave me alone." Marcus's smile barely moved. I lied. Then he looked at me again. "And do you know what's funny, Colby? If that footage goes public, it won't just ruin her." He paused, enjoying it. "It'll ruin you too." Juliana's eyes flashed. "Leave him out of this." Marcus's expression chilled. "Too late." He tapped the envelope again. "Sign. Or tomorrow morning the board gets the clip, the press gets the narrative, and you get stripped down to a headline." Juliana's fingers trembled, and for the first time, I saw how badly she wanted to run. But she didn't. She stayed. And that told me something about her that was bigger than this company. Juliana Whitmore wasn't brave because she never felt fear. She was brave because she felt it and stood there anyway. Juliana leaned back slightly, forcing her voice to sound almost bored. "You're threatening me because I won't approve your land grab package." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "It's not a land grab, it's business." "It's greed," she corrected. He smiled, cold. "Call it what you want." "Sign." Juliana glanced at the envelope like it might bite her. Then she did something I didn't expect. She looked at me. Not for permission, for steadiness. Like she was asking my calm to hold her steady the way a handrail holds someone on stairs. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just kept my eyes on hers. And she understood. Juliana turned back to Marcus and said quietly, "If I sign, you stop everything?" Marcus's smile widened, triumphant. "Everything. The board, the press, the whispers." Juliana's voice stayed soft. "And you stop trying to control my life." Marcus chuckled. "You're not listening. I'm not trying. I am." Juliana nodded slowly, like she was accepting a deal. But I could hear the trap in her calm. "Okay," she said. Marcus's eyebrows lifted. "Okay?" Juliana reached toward the envelope. My heartbeat slammed so hard, thought it would shake the table. What was she doing? She slid her fingers under the flap and pulled out a stack of papers. I saw the top page, a resignation letter with her name printed like a grave marker. Juliana didn't react. She flipped to the next page, then the next. Marcus watched her, satisfied. Juliana turned one page more slowly than the others, like she was reading every word on purpose. Then she asked, almost casually, "And what happens to the company after I resign?" Marcus's lips parted slightly. "I take interim control. The board votes within 72 hours. Juliana looked up. "And the acquisition package?" Marcus smiled, thinking he'd won. "Approved. Signed. Done." Juliana nodded, still calm. "So you force the board, ruin the company's mission, and crush small farmers." Marcus's eyes hardened. "I expand the company. I increase profit. I do what leadership is." Juliana's gaze didn't blink. "And you'll do it, using blackmail." Marcus leaned in, annoyed now. "Yes, Juliana, that's what I'm doing. Say it with me so you finally understand." There it was, the confession. I felt my fingers tighten around the recorder. Juliana's voice stayed soft. "You're admitting you threatened me." Marcus scoffed. "Threatened? Please. I gave you a choice." Juliana's eyes stayed on his. "You sent investigators." Marcus rolled his eyes. "Yes." "You fed stories." "Yes." "You're using footage to force me out." "Yes," he snapped, then caught himself. But it was too late. Because the moment he said it, Juliana's shoulders dropped, the tiniest fraction, like she'd been holding a weight, and finally set it down. Marcus saw the change, and his eyes narrowed. "What did you do?" Juliana's face stayed calm, but her voice shifted, stronger now. "Nothing." Marcus's gaze flicked to me, to my hands under the table, to the way I hadn't touched my drink, to the way my posture never changed. And then his smile disappeared completely. "Let me see your hands," he said softly. The restaurant noise faded in my ears. Juliana's eyes widened just a little. Marcus leaned forward, voice still smooth, but now it was a blade. "Colby, hands, now!" My pulse hammered. If I lifted my hands, he'd see the recorder. If I refused, he'd know anyway. Juliana's fingers moved under the table, barely touching my wrist for 1 second. A silent message. "Don't panic!" So I didn't. I lifted my hands slowly. Empty hands. Because in that split second, Juliana had slid the recorder out of my grip and into her own sleeve like she'd practiced this kind of survival for years. Marcus stared at my palms, searching. Then he let out a slow breath and laughed. Too loud. "Good," he said, but his eyes were dangerous now. "Very good." He stood abruptly, chair scraping the floor. People turned their heads. Juliana didn't move. Marcus leaned down close to her ear and spoke low enough that only we could hear. "You think you're clever," he whispered. "But if you try to use that against me—" He paused, letting the threat sit between us. "I'll take the thing you love most." Juliana's face went pale, and I didn't even know what the thing was yet. Marcus straightened and smiled at the world again. "Enjoy your date." Then he walked out like nothing had happened. The black SUV was gone within seconds. Juliana sat frozen, breathing shallow. I stared at her. "Juliana, what did he mean?" She didn't answer right away. She stared at the table like it was far away, like her mind had left her body to hide. Then her voice came out small, almost broken. "He means Lily." My chest tightened. "Lily?" Juliana's eyes lifted to mine, glossy with something she'd been holding back for a long time. "My daughter," she whispered. "She's 6. The restaurant felt like it tilted. "You have a child?" I said softly. Juliana nodded once, shame and fear fighting in her face. I kept her private. Not because I'm ashamed of her. Her voice cracked. Because Marcus is her father, and he uses her to control me. I swallowed hard. The anger I felt didn't burn wild. It turned cold, focused. "Where is Lily now?" I asked. Juliana blinked fast. "With Ruth. Ruth watches her when I work late." Of course. Ruth wasn't just a gossip. Ruth was a shield. Juliana looked down and her hands shook. "He's going to file for custody. He's going to try to take her from me. He's been waiting for a moment where I look weak." I leaned forward, keeping my voice steady like a hand on her back. "You're not weak." Juliana laughed once, but it sounded like pain. "Colby, you don't understand what he is." I remembered the messages, the photos, the threats. "I understand enough," I said quietly. "And you're not alone." Juliana looked at me like she wanted to believe that. But belief was hard when someone had trained you to expect betrayal. Her phone buzzed. She looked at it, and all the blood drained from her face. "What is it?" I asked. She didn't speak. She turned the screen toward me. A message from an unknown number. A photo of Lily outside Ruth's house, taken from far away, like someone was watching. Then the words, "You have until morning." Juliana's breath hitched like she'd been punched without being touched. I stood up slowly, careful, scanning the restaurant, the windows, the parking lot. Juliana grabbed my wrist, voice shaking. "Don't do anything." I looked down at her, keeping my tone calm, even though my heart was roaring. "Then tell me what you need," I said. "Right now." Juliana swallowed hard. "I need to get to my daughter," she whispered. "Before he does." She slid the recorder into my hand. Again, this time openly, like she didn't care who saw. We have his confession, she said, voice trembling. But if he gets Lily, none of it matters. I tightened my grip around the recorder. Then I nodded once. Okay, I said, we go now. And as we rushed out into the night air, the wind cold against our faces, I realized the truth in a way that hit deeper than fear. My boss didn't say yes to a date because she wanted romance. She said yes because she was running out of time. And she chose me to stand beside her when her whole world was about to catch fire. The night air hit like a slap. Juliana gripped her phone so hard her fingers went white, staring out the windshield as if her eyes could stop time. Ruth's house, she whispered. Please, just get me to Lily. I drove fast but smooth because fear already had Juliana in a chokehold. I wasn't going to add panic to it. Halfway there, her phone buzzed again. She flinched. I didn't ask. I watched her face go pale, watched her lips part like she couldn't breathe. Colby, she whispered. He's nearby. When Ruth's street came into view, I saw it immediately. A black SUV parked down the road like a predator pretending to sleep. Juliana saw it too. Her breath caught, and her hand flew to her mouth. He's here, she said, voice cracking. I cut the headlights and pulled over short of Ruth's driveway. We don't rush into his trap, I said. We do this smart. Juliana's eyes flashed. My daughter is not a strategy. She's the reason we have to be careful, I said, steady. Ruth is already protecting her. We're going to make sure Lily stays safe, and Marcus doesn't walk away clean. Juliana swallowed, fighting tears. Then she nodded once, like she hated needing help, but hated losing Lily more. We moved on foot, quiet, not running. Ruth's porch light was blazing like a warning. Before we reached the steps, the front door swung open. Ruth stood there in a robe and slippers, face hard as stone. Took you long enough, she snapped. Then her eyes cut to Juliana. Baby, Lily's inside, breathing, watching cartoons, safe. Juliana rushed past her like her heart was on fire. I followed. Lily sat on the couch wrapped in a blanket, eyes too wide for a 6-year-old. When she saw her mom, she launched herself forward. Mommy! Juliana dropped to her knees and held her so tight it looked like she was trying to fuse them together. I'm here, Juliana whispered again and again. I'm here. Lily's little voice trembled. Why is Daddy outside? Juliana froze. That one word, Daddy, made the room colder. Ruth's voice cut in like a knife. Because he's a nuisance with a suit and a plan. Juliana kissed Lily's hair, then looked up at me with raw fear. He's going to take her, she whispered. I crouched beside Lily and kept my voice gentle. Lily, you stay right here with Ruth. Nobody is taking you anywhere. Lily stared at me, lips shaking. He makes Mommy shake. Juliana's eyes filled. Ruth muttered, Not tonight. A car door thumped outside. Ruth's eyes narrowed. He's walking up again, and he brought a lawyer. Juliana stood slowly, shoulders stiff like armor being strapped on. I stepped with her. Ruth swung the front door open before Marcus could knock. Marcus stood there smiling, suit perfect, folder in hand. A man in glasses stood beside him, briefcase ready. Marcus's eyes locked on Juliana like she belonged to him. There she is, he said softly. My family. Juliana's voice didn't shake this time. You don't get to call us that. Marcus lifted the folder. Emergency custody petition. Temporary order. I'm being generous, Jules. Sign what I want and we keep this quiet. Ruth laughed once. Quiet. That's what you call threats now? Marcus ignored her and looked at me. And you, he said, amused. Still here. You really want to be the hero? I kept my face calm. I want Lily safe. Marcus's smile tightened. Then convince her mother to cooperate. Juliana took a slow breath. You're not taking her. Marcus's voice dropped, sweet but poisonous. You don't decide that. Juliana's hand slid into her sleeve. Marcus noticed and his eyes sharpened. Juliana pulled out the recorder, and for the first time, Marcus's mask cracked. Juliana held it up just enough. "You confessed last night." Marcus's lawyer leaned forward. "Ma'am, if you're claiming," Ruth snapped her fingers, "if you say one more word, I'll personally escort you off my porch." Marcus's eyes went cold. "You think a recording saves you?" Juliana's voice stayed clear. "It saves Lily." Marcus stepped closer. Ruth stepped in front of Juliana like a wall. "One more step and I scream so loud the whole street learns your name." Marcus's jaw clenched. Then the sound of tires rolled up behind us. A patrol car stopped at the curb. Ruth didn't look surprised at all. The officer walked up calmly. "We got a call about harassment and a child being threatened." Marcus switched to innocence instantly. "Officer, I'm the father." The officer looked at Juliana. "Ma'am, do you feel threatened?" Juliana nodded once. "Yes." She lifted the recorder. "He blackmailed me, threatened to ruin my career, threatened to take my daughter." Marcus's smile twitched. The officer's gaze hardened. "Sir," the officer said, "step back from the property." Marcus glared. "This isn't over." Juliana didn't blink. "For Lily's sake, I hope it is." The officer warned Marcus to leave the area. The lawyer tugged Marcus's sleeve like he understood the risk now. Marcus backed away slowly, eyes on Juliana like a promise of war. Then the SUV rolled off into the dark. Juliana's shoulders collapsed the moment it vanished. Ruth's voice softened for the first time all night. "He wanted you to fold. You didn't." Juliana swallowed. "Tomorrow, he goes to the board." I nodded. "Then tomorrow we go too." Morning came fast and cruel. At 9 a.m., Juliana sat in her office on a board video call, posture perfect, face calm. Ruth stood behind her like a guardian. I sat beside Juliana, quiet. Marcus appeared on screen with that polished smile like he'd already won. He played a short, edited clip. Juliana, late at night, exhausted, framed to look unstable. Board members shifted, a few faces tightened. Marcus sighed dramatically. "This is what leadership looks like? Chaos? Poor judgment?" Juliana leaned forward. "The video is edited." Marcus lifted his hands. "Of course she says that." Juliana raised the recorder into view. "And this," she said, voice steady, "is his confession." Marcus's smile faltered. "That's ridiculous." Juliana pressed play. Marcus's voice filled the speakers, clear, arrogant, unmistakable. "Investigators, articles, rumors. I make people question your judgment. I'm using footage to force you out. I gave you a choice." Silence slammed down. One board member's eyes widened, another went pale. A woman on the call covered her mouth. "Marcus," someone said tightly, "is that your voice?" Marcus stammered. "It's manipulated." Ruth stepped into frame and held up the police report number from last night. Juliana added quietly, "And the harassment complaint is already filed." The board chair's face hardened. "Marcus Whitmore, you are suspended pending investigation, effective immediately." Marcus's smile died completely. "You can't," he started. Juliana's voice cut through like steel. "I can." The call ended with Marcus removed and Juliana confirmed. When the screen went dark, Juliana stayed still like her body didn't trust the quiet. Then, her shoulders trembled. I didn't grab her. I didn't rush her. I just stayed close. Finally, she whispered, "I only said yes to that date because I needed a witness." "I know," I said softly. Her eyes lifted, wet. "And you still stayed." I nodded. "Because you shouldn't have to fight alone." The door opened. Lily ran in holding a drawing, cheeks bright like she'd carried sunshine into the office. "Mommy, look!" It was 3 stick figures, one tall, one with long hair, one little with curls. Lily pointed proudly. "That's you." That's me. That's Colby. Juliana pressed a hand to her mouth, holding back a cry. Lily looked at me seriously. Are you still our friend? I crouched to her level. If you'll have me. Lily nodded hard. Good. Because you make Mommy not shake. Juliana let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob, and she pulled Lily close. I looked at Juliana, and this time I didn't see a boss. I saw a mother who had been carrying terror alone until she couldn't. We can have a real date, I said quietly. One where you don't need a witness. Juliana's eyes searched mine like she was checking if Hope was safe. Then she nodded. I'd like that. Ruth appeared at the door, arms crossed, satisfied. About time. Juliana laughed through tears. Ruth waved her off. Go live. And later, when the day finally slowed, Juliana and I sat on a bench outside the building with Thas and Lily between us, the sun warm on our faces like a second chance. Juliana looked at me and said softly, Thank you for seeing me. I nodded. Always. And if you're listening right now, I want to ask you something. When someone good finally shows up in your life, will you run because you're scared, or will you let them stay?